back. Is everybody there? Let's see, we have a question from Vanessa. Let's go to... I sent, oh, Chad, I saw this here. I sent a message to Heather of what I did when I had my ear infection. I don't know if she heard her or not. Now, Vanessa was asking if the appraisal said the price is lower than the seller asked for, the seller has to change the price. They don't have to do anything, Vanessa. In fact, they don't have to sell. That's part of contingencies we're going to go over in a little bit. Do you guys search for Talia? Ah, she's gone. Talia was gone, but there's a little kid instead. That was cute. Almost as good as ice cream. Gil says, yeah. All right, guys. Contracts. Are we ready? And now I got my son watching on YouTube Live, so he's sending me messages on YouTube Live. This is awesome. All right, so let's do this, guys. Real estate contracts. So in listings, we were dealing with the seller, correct? We said that. In contracts, who are we dealing with? Are we dealing with the seller? Are we dealing with the buyer? Or are we dealing with both? Or are we dealing with none? What do you guys think? Let me know in the chat. Hey, chat, possibly, yep. Who are we dealing with? Luz just says everybody. Like, the more, the merrier. And the answer is both. But, wait. When we talked about listings, one of the things I said is, without a listing, there's no sale, because without inventory, there's no buyer, correct? So let's not go here. Without a contract, there's no sale. So who do you think initiates the contract now? Who do you think initiates the contract? Let me know. Who initiates the contract? Absolutely, the buyer, okay? So the buyer initiates the contract. And how does the buyer initiate the contract? By putting an offer. Guess what a contract is? It's the offer. When somebody says put their offer in writing or put it in writing, what they're asking for is a contract. This is something that almost 16 years ago I had no idea what it was. Almost 16 years ago when I started investing in real estate, I saw a couple of deals here in Newark, and I went to the listing agent and I said, I want this property. I want that property. And the agent goes, put it in writing. And to me, so you guys understand how good we are, the realtors, how good we are at our business. To me, since I did not know, and I sent a message to the person, I said, now it's in writing, right? I want this property. That's what I said. It's in writing. It's a text message. Okay. Shouldn't the agent go like, hey, are you represented? Do you have a realtor? Shouldn't the agent have asked me that 16 years ago? Do you think the agent did? It was a 3-family. $329,000 was the listing price. I remember it clearly. 3-family, 16 years ago. Now, if I were to sell it, let's say I kept it for all these years, if I were to sell it, I would have almost tripled my money. Plus, it was a 3-family. So every month I would have made that money. Okay? So the agent should have asked, hey, are you represented? I wasn't. So they lost the opportunity to have the listing and the buyer. And here's another thing. That listing agent is a broker. And at the time was already a broker. Isn't that crazy? Are you guys understanding what I'm trying to say? Don't miss out on opportunities. I would have bought a lot of properties at the time. I was getting into this investing game and I was crazy and I was going for it. Let's do it, you know. Daphne, I lost you. I still see you. You're there. I didn't lose you. Right? What I was saying is, let's say you're the listing agent, Daphne. Okay? And I go see one of your listings. So let's say it's 23 Adams Avenue in Elizabeth. Okay? It's your listing. You're the listing agent. I get there and I say, hey, Daphne, I like the property. I want to buy it. And you told me, Bruno, just put it in writing. Okay. If you're telling me to put it in writing, you're telling me to make an offer. At the time, I did not know what it was. I put it in writing. I sent you a text message that says, Daphne, I want this property. That's all I did. Literally, guys, that's how naive I was to the business. That's all I did. I want the property on whatever, 23 Adams Avenue, Elizabeth. That's what I did. I swear to God. The agent, so you, Daphne, you should have realized, well, if this guy is sending me messages saying he wants the property, then most likely he has no agent. So shouldn't you ask me, hey, Bruno, do you have an agent that's working with you? Shouldn't you have asked that for me, like after you see the type of message that I just sent you? Right? You should have. And if you would have done that, that's what this person did not do, which he was also a broker. If you would have done that, you would have gotten a commission, a full commission. So let's say you listed the property at 6%. And I was your buyer. You got the seller, you got the buyer, you get 6% commission. You got the total. Right? But if you get the seller and somebody else brings me, you get 3%, for instance, and the other person gets 3%. So this person lost the opportunity, or this agent lost the opportunity to eat from both plates. You got it? That's what it was. Gary, at an open house should be the one of the first things you establish when somebody walks in. Absolutely. A lot of agents don't do that. Actually, the majority of the agents don't ask. They assume if you walk in by yourself, you assume you're unrepresented, which is, again, a big mistake. Something for you guys to remember. You represent the buyer. Remember this. Listen up. If you represent the buyer is a baby. Do not let the baby cross the street by him or herself. Why would you let a baby, your client, go to an open house by him or herself? I'll tell you right now, that baby's going to get snatched by the listing agent or by whoever's holding the open house. Do you understand? Yeah, Nessa, you just wrote Hudson? We're not throwing babies on Hudson River. I'm sorry. I don't know what you mean by that. Should you even be in this class? I'm scared now. All right. Connie, open season. Absolutely. Guys, so important. Don't leave your clients alone. They are your kids. They are your baby. That's what it is. Until it closes, they are yours. Protect them. You will lose them as soon as they go to an open house. Okay? Very important. Speaking of house, there goes Meredith running the house again. Hey, Meredith, you there? I told your daughter, hey, just run around the house, that you don't stay still, not even 1 second. Mina, so the listing agent could find the buyer and represent him as well? It's called dual agency. Disclosed dual agency. Absolutely. You could, and you get the full commission. Absolutely. All right, next. Let's move forward. So we already established that a real estate contract is an offer. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is about contract law. Look at, as it doesn't say real estate contract, it says contract law, right? So this is general. What we're going to go over now is general contract. So every single contract has to abide by these laws, by these rules. Pay attention, because this is very, very important for state exam. First of all, what is a contract? A contract may be defined as the voluntary agreement between legally competent parties to perform or refrain from performing some legal act supported by legal consideration. So there's 4 things that are in a contract. 4 things. These are called essential elements. Essential elements. And the very first one, hold on, Linda just said that's what we did with Mario. He was a dual agent. Well, Linda, you should have hired me to represent. Then it would be 2 agents instead of dual agent. All right. Just saying. You're in my class and you use one of my realtors? Seriously? All right. One of the things that's very important. Very, very important. Competent parties. What are competent parties? This is essential to every single contract. What are competent parties? Well, being of sound mind and at least 18 years of age or older. Right here. Competent parties. Okay? All right, Linda. All right. He was my student too, years ago. All right, so competent parties, 18 years of age or older. Very, very important. Ready? If you are a legal adult, and that's what 18 years of age or older mean, if you're a legal adult and you are of sound mind, meaning you know what you're doing as entering into this contract, that means that it's a voluntary action that you're taking, correct? Now, let's look at this. Perla, me, of course. These next 2 sentences, so this one right here and this one, they're very similar because it talks about people under 18. But here's what I want to show you. Ready? A married person who's under 18 is an adult, period. If you're married, under 18, you're an adult. That means you answer to every contract as if you were of legal age. So from the age of 16 till 18, there's something called emancipation, right? The age of 16 to 18, you could be considered an adult if your parents emancipated you, allowed you to act as an adult, allowed you to get married, okay? So they're telling the judge, Your Honor, yes, get him out of the house, please. I'll sign whatever, just get him out. They can be adults, okay? Because most of the times that's what it is, right? Us parents, we say all the time, my house, my rules, right? You want to have your rules? When you're 18, you can do it. But there's this legal loophole, parents. There's a legal loophole that allows them to get out sooner. It's called emancipation. I'm joking. I don't want my kids to get out of the house. But it's emancipation. That's what it is. So, if you are, thanks, Jonathan. He says state exam question for sure. So, Jonathan just did the exam, so he knows how it is. And I appreciate you always coming back here and helping us out. And if you guys haven't noticed, he's the one that's always calling you guys on WhatsApp. He's the one always calling you guys, doing the roll call, say, hey, class started. All right, so I appreciate your help, Jonathan. All right, next. We're going to talk about persons under 18. But wait, didn't we just say that? Somebody under 18? Didn't we just say that? There's 2 different types of people under 18 when it comes to competent parties. There's the one that's married. That means you're a legal adult by definition, right? And then there's under 18 just being a minor. For instance, my son, the kid that was here, my Reese's Pieces, Pedro, he's 13 years old. He's about to be 14. If I purchase a property and I put his name on that contract, on that deed, right? Is he the legal owner of that property? The answer is yes. But can he back out of the deal because he was a minor? He did not understand what he was getting himself into. He was not of sound mind. Okay? When he got into it, he did not understand. Because to be of sound mind, you must understand what you're doing. Okay? So any contract could be voidable. They may enter into a valid contract, but it may be voidable by the minor. So as soon as my son reaches the age of 18, he can say, Dad, real estate, really? Right? I don't want to deal with tenants. I don't want to deal with all this stuff. And as a good parent, I'll say, yeah, but it's making you a lot of money. Right? But can I force him? The answer is no. Once they reach the age of 18, they can void the contract. Guys, minors can get into contracts, but they can void the contract once they reach the age of 18. Remember this. It's the same thing with life insurance. If we put insurance, which everybody should, on their kids, not because you expect them to die, but because insurance will build cash value over time. So by the time they reach college, right, let's say they go to college, there's money there, and it's the cheapest insurance you can get. And there's money there that's like your savings for them. There's money to pay for college. Or let's say they don't go to college, they don't want to. There's money there to buy the house. So by the time they reach the age of 21, they have enough money there to buy a house. Right? But can they reach the age of 21 and say, no, I'm not going to continue this policy? Can they cancel it? Sure. After 18, they can do that. Any contract, this is law, it's not just real estate. Any contract. Minors can get into contracts, but they can void it as soon as they reach the age of 18. Think about it this way as well. How many times do you say in the house, you got to do chores, right? They reach the age of 18 and says, I'm not doing anything. They break the contract. That's it. They're 18 now, right? Automatically looks like they're adults. Let's look at this. Questions. I already addressed this one. That's the easiest one to address. Who should you use to list the property? Of course. I mean, right? Just saying. Now, can under duress make it voidable as well? Next page. We'll get there. Gary, happened to you. What happened to you? Can you, clarify a little bit more? And then Jonathan goes, state exam question, guys. Right on live TV. Here we go. Tell everybody what the state exam question is. Get me in trouble, why don't you? So, state exam question says, along the lines with a 15-year-old inherited property from his grandparents. He lists it for sale, then decides not to sell after entering a contract. The options are, the contract is void because he's a minor, the contract is enforceable and cannot be canceled, the contract is voidable because he's a minor, and the fourth option is he forgot the fourth option, okay? But the answer is voidable. Anything dealing with minors, unless it says married, anything dealing with minors is voidable. That would be the correct answer. Okay? You got it wrong? It happens. If it's a minor, they can get into a contract, legal contract, but by the time they reach 18 or before 18, they can void it. Let's see. Gary says, when I was 16, a family member added me to a contract to get the unit they wanted. Wow. And when it came to selling the property, I got half once I was of age. Okay, so you had to wait until you were of age to collect the money. There you go. That's a good deal. I wish all my family members have done that. I'll buy a bunch of properties when I was 16, 17. I would love to do it. That's great. You guys got it? Are we good on this? Thumbs up? Great. So, Gary's the man, absolutely. Well, wait until you meet the mother. All right. So, Tidy, the answer is voidable. Yes. I'll tell you guys right now. So between Gary and his mom, there's going to be like the dream team. It's going to be dangerous. I'll tell you right now. It's already bad as it is. Like, she's rocking it, and he comes into the play. I don't know. All right. Next. The next thing we have is offer and acceptance. You call her Kris Jenner. Yep. All right. I'm always going to praise your mom because she's a go-getter. I love it. All right. Her and Lori, same agency. Lori Batiste, she's also great. Not because they were my students, but because they are go-getters. Just like Mario, the one that brings me coffee, right? Go-getter. He's always working at it. That's very, very important. Say hi back to them. Thank you, Gary. All right, so we had competent parties. What does that mean? We're legal adults and of sound mind. We got that out of the way. Perfect. Without that, there's no valid contract. Then we have offer and acceptance. What is offer and acceptance? Well, I offer, you accept. If you don't accept, do we have a contract? Can I force you to accept? All right, so under duress, Gil, all right, can I force you? No, it's not a valid contract. It's a void contract from the get-go. If you're forced, it could also be voidable. We'll talk about that difference in a little bit. But it's not a valid contract because I cannot force you into anything. It must be a free, voluntary act. Okay? So, offer and acceptance is called mutual assent. That means mutual agreement. That means we understand the full terms of this contract. We understand the full terms of this contract. Okay? The next one is consideration. Every time you see consideration, guys, and doesn't matter what type of course you're taking, for insurance is the same thing. Every time you see consideration, it's money or value. Okay? Money or value. It's exchange of money or value. So I'm giving you this in exchange for that. I'm giving you the house in exchange for money. My son, I gave him part of the house in exchange for his love and affection. You guys understand? I'm not asking him to pay me anything at all, right? I'm just bribing him for him to keep treating me properly until I die. That's all. Simple. All right? These are different types of considerations. Legal tender, exchange of value, or love and affection. Consideration is an exchange of value. Now the price or amount must be definitely stated and payable in exchange for the deed or right received. Very important. In a sales contract, very, very important. We're going to repeat this a bunch of times later. Consideration is the entire purchase price. If you're selling for $500,000, the contract must state $500,000. You cannot say $1. You have to say $500,000. Okay? Gil just wrote, promissory note can be a cookie. And then he said you spelled it wrong. Just flew right over me. I know there's something good coming, but I just didn't get it. Consideration can be anything of value for more than a penny. Yep. Oh, got it. You put promissory note instead of oh, gotcha. Okay. So it could be a cookie. Yes, you could exchange with a cookie. Listen, if you got the best cookies in the world, why not? Maybe somebody is willing to sell the house because of a cookie. I would sell all my properties to have my mom's pizza again. So yeah, if I could, that would be the exchange. Pizza. It's not my mom, obviously. It's the pizza that she made it so well. But yeah, I mean, anything. All right, the fourth one is legality of object. Okay. What is legality of the object? Is the legality of the goal. What's the objective? What's the goal of this transaction, right? So the legality of the object means that the purpose must be a legal purpose, right? So it must not involve anything that it's illegal or against public policy. Hey, Heather. I just saw you there. Hi. Hope you're feeling better. All right, guys. So here's where we're at. There's 4 essential elements. We just talked about competent parties, right? Offer and acceptance, consideration, and legal purpose. So let's address legal purpose. We all have sound minds, right? We're all adults, right? Competent parties, hopefully. Here's my offer. I hope you guys accept. I'm going to give you guys $1 million to sell coke. Simple as that. Is that legal? Melissa, Zoom keeps kicking you out. You know why. Okay? Guys, let me know if it's legal. I'm giving you $1 million, guys. $1 million right now. All you got to do is sell coke. Is it legal? I'm not even going to say anything. I just want to see these answers. Steph is like, I remember this. Gary, you remember this one too. Gil, you should remember this one too. Right? Same example for years. Nothing has changed. Yep. Lose, you should know. Lose, you should know. All right. Perla, I like the way you think. I'll take the $1 million and I'll pay somebody $10,000 to sell the coke. Very good. I like the way you think. All right, guys. Here's the thing. Great excuse. Here's the thing. For those of you that said no, I don't know what kind of coke you're thinking about. But I was talking about, where is it? Right here. Coca-Cola. I don't know where your mind's at or what kind of business you guys do during the day. But, you know, well, this one I already know what she does during the day. I mean, she sends the husband to military and, you know, pays somebody else to sell coke while she's here, right? Anyway, so, and she's smiling, so it's just kind of like, yep, you know it. Hey, I don't care how you bought that house with $100,000 and still $110,000 to fix, and I don't want to know all that stuff, okay? All right, it's $1 million to sell Coca-Cola. That makes it legal. If it's the other type of Coke, obviously it's illegal. So that breaks. I'm just gonna ignore that one right now because let me go here. So that breaks this 4th one, the legality of the object. We had everything else. I told you that we're competent parties. I made an offer. Some of you did not accept. Some of you said, yes, absolutely. If it's Coca-Cola, we'll do it, right? But the most important thing in this example was being legal. You got it? It has to be for a legal purpose. If it's Coca-Cola, yeah, you can do it. By the way, I'm not offering $1 million to sell Coca-Cola, because this was just an example before somebody jumps at it and says, yeah, I'll do it. No, not happening. The next thing is, I just made a promise, right? Did we put anything in writing? No. This was a verbal promise, a verbal agreement if you guys accepted it, right? Now, a contract, this is something you must remember, contract may be oral or written. So I said verbally, right? I said $1 million to sell Coke. Is that a valid contract? If it's Coca-Cola, it's a valid contract. Do we have to put it in writing? No, we don't have to put it in writing. Should we though? Absolutely. Carlos, it doesn't matter. I already made my disclosure. Carlos goes like, I got you on video. That's it. Oh, I know what you're going to do. You're going to do like the news channels, right? You're going to cut snippets, and that's how you're going to get me. Got it. Thank God I record all these so I can have the full video. So here's what you guys need to remember. It could be oral or written. Parol evidence rule. Parol evidence rule, however, states that a written contract, and this makes sense, a written contract takes precedence over oral agreements or promises. So guys, let's say now we're going to put it on paper. A lot of you might be all excited because, hey, it's $1 million, $1 million, a big number, I'm going to get $1 million, right? And then when I put it on paper, I forgot a zero. And you're so excited, right? What do? You sign. You just see a number 1 and a bunch of zeros. You sign it. So my question now is, which one is valid? Is it the written one or the verbal one? What's on paper? The written one. Okay. Yes?
I finished
We will eventually finish this class too. What's up?
I finished the first one and I'm downloading the second one.
Okay.
Well, like the print one.
You came just to tell me that?
Yeah. And the disruption class.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, Pin. So he finished an entry that I gave him. So he's doing a bunch of questions for the life and health insurance course. I'm asking him to just enter into our system. All right. So Talia says the written is more important. All right. So guys, all of you wrote written, and I'm going to say depends. Okay. So traditionally, written contract takes precedence over oral agreements. So if I put 100,000, I only owe you 100,000 if it's in writing. But there's something called Statute of Frauds. And Statute of Frauds says that a contract for sale of real estate must be in writing. So if it's for the sale, it must be in writing. Or if it's a lease for more than 3 years. Okay? These two must be in writing. Everything else could be verbal. So to every rule, there's an exception. Sorry, I got this tag bothering me. To every rule, there's an exception, right? I've mentioned that before. So in 1996, New Jersey Statute of Frauds, this is strictly for New Jersey, right? New Jersey Statute of Frauds was changed. So now it allows oral contracts to be enforced where there's clear and convincing evidence. Like, for instance, the video. Right, Carlos? We have a video. We have proof. We have witnesses. If we didn't have a video, there's like 30-something people here that could have vouched for it. Where there's clear and convincing evidence. If you can show that even my intentions were to give you $1 million, then the $100,000 is not the most effective one. So remember this. Whatever's in writing takes over oral agreements or promises. Right? But if I can prove that your intention was to get $1 million, right? Or my intention was to give you $1 million, then if I have that clear and convincing evidence, then we revert back to the original promise. You guys got it? So in writing, yes, primary, okay? Priority. But if we can prove that there's clear and convincing evidence, then the promise, verbal promise, oral promise or agreement takes over. What do I have here? Daphne, when a transaction is in place, can we record as a salesperson, recording the conversation? Well, depending on the state, you can always record, but depending on the state, you have to notify the person that you are recording, right? Depending on the state, it might not even be admissible in court. So I don't think it's the right thing to do. Do we need to record stuff? I don't think so. if you're good with your notes and you put a nice contract together and say, hey, or a communication in writing, per our conversation, okay, per our conversation, attached is a contract for X amount of dollars for this type of, for this particular property. All right, and then the contract already says everything as well. So do we need to put it, to have a recording of it? No. But remember, if it's real estate and if we're involved, then our authorization must be in writing. So either way, we're covered. You guys got it? If we're involved, in writing. No matter what. If you want to get commission, in writing. Damn. Heather just got to Jersey and she has the answer already. Is that why you guys left Texas? She goes like, that was quick. Says New Jersey is a one-party consent, meaning that under New Jersey wiretapping, this political stuff, and the Electronic Surveillance Act, it is illegal to record a private in-person or telephone conversation unless one person consents. Says Google. Okay. So, like I said, I always like to address different states, different rules. Like if you're talking with somebody from a different state and they're the ones that are recording you, it might be based on laws of that state. If you're here, then might be the laws from here. So know the laws, and here you go, one of them. Thanks, Heather. I missed you. You know, I was missing these things, by the way. She's like, where do you get? Right there. Chad, come on. Right here. Google. All right. Where's Crystal? You're failing. What happened, Crystal? Heather just took over. I don't know. In the first couple of days, Crystal's like on point, throwing stuff at me. Like the whole, I got this, you know. Heather just took over. Got somebody from Queens, and then, where were you guys from in Texas? Heather? You're looking at Google? Okay. All right, so we got right here, Queens, right? And then Wichita Falls, Dallas. And Dallas is winning, just saying. Okay, Vanessa. What about if a person is doing something illegal and you want some kind of proofs, like discrimination? First of all, discrimination, you don't have to have proof. You just have to feel that you were discriminated against. Okay? So if somebody feels discriminated against, they can take an action. If you guys remember from Chapter 4, you can go directly to HUD, or you can take it to federal court. If it's in New Jersey, you also should take it to the Attorney General within 45 days of the act. Next. Next, Luz says, can I pay Heather $1,000 to take my exam? You can pay her. I don't know if she'll take it. She says it will have to be the $1 million, I guess. Talia, is that a blender? The noise? Yeah, we'll call it a blender. That keeps on interrupting. All right, so back to the book. Now, there's different types of contracts. There's express or implied, unilateral or bilateral, executory or executed, valid, unenforceable, voidable, or void. Now, expressed or implied contracts. This is easy. Expressed means I told you. Implied means I expected you to. It's as simple as that. Expressed, I told you needed... Yeah, Carlos, he just took the motorcycle. Expressed means I told you guys you need to have 75 hours, right? So I expressed how many hours you need to take this. I expressed that you have up to 1 year to take this course. I expressed that you could miss 10% of the course. I expressed that in the state exam, it's 70% up to 4 hours, but my exam is 75% passing rate, and it's 4 hours as well. I expressed a bunch of stuff. What is implied, though? Implied is that for you guys to pass, for you guys to learn, 1, you need to be here. 2, you need to study. 3, you need to pay attention. That's implied, even though I'm always expressing it. But I didn't have to say it. It's implied that if I'm here giving you this information, right, it's implied that on your end, you're supposed to take certain actions as well.
Hello.
Yes, my son. He just brought the motorcycle back. Carlos says you took the motorcycle. Go ahead. Go. Lose is 90%.
Do I do the quick quizzes and the unit quiz for the second one? Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Sorry for
Will this be the last one, or?
Probably not.
Probably not.
I have to tell you I'm done.
At least he's honest. All right.
Okay, goodbye.
Okay, bye. Bring your kid to school day. Anyway. So, any questions on expressed or implied? Nope. Geraldine, you're eating a cookie? Is that the cookie that Gil was using to buy a house? No? Okay, it's a different cookie. Okay. Perlo, yep, all the time. That's quesadillas. What's wrong with you guys? 18 Oliver Street. Simple. Daphne, you wrote implied. Is there a question with that, or you're expressing a question, or you're implying that there's a question? I thought that was a good, clever one right now. Just saying. Let's go to Geraldine's, absolutely. Geraldine, just throw the address so we can go there for quesadillas. Daphne, you want me to explain implied? Okay. It's what I was saying, like, I expect you. Implied is based on actions, conduct, right? So I told my son what to do, as an example. Right now, I told him things that he needed to do. I expect him to complete it, but I also told him that he can take breaks. I'm not forcing him to do it all at once, like not a 9 to 5. He's been here since this morning with me. It's not a 9 to 5, okay? He can do it as he wishes. What do I expect is that by the end of the day, it is done. So I expressed what he needed to do. What do I expect? That his actions, right, will lead to him ending towards the end of the day. So implied is based on conduct, based on acts. For instance, a good example here is if you go to the restaurant to eat, isn't it implied they have to pay? Right? It doesn't say you have to, it's implied. You ordered, so you expect, or it's expected that you pay for it. And Gil just wrote exactly what I was saying. Thank you. Ha! Beat you to it. Not if we go to Geraldine's, they'll be free. She never said that, but we'll go for it. Implied. Dine and Dash, says Gary. Isn't that an actual place? Like a fast place? Fast food place or something? Dine and Dash? Thought it was something like that. Alright, so if you guys want Geraldine's address, I'm going to give it to you in a little bit so you guys can go join her. Hey, Catherine, your sister just passed by my office. I think she was the motorcycle. She just texted me. I passed by your office. All right. So, express implied. We're good. Next, we have bilateral and unilateral contracts. Now, this is what's going to change everything. Lateral means side. If it's bilateral, it's a two-sided agreement. If it's unilateral, it's a one-sided agreement. So what is a unilateral contract? A one-sided agreement. That means one party promises, but only one party needs to comply with it before the other one takes action. A two-sided contract, both of us must take action. Okay? So an example is a bilateral contract is a real estate purchase, right? Like it says here, real estate purchase. Because the seller promises to sell, the buyer promises to buy, and they both going to take positive actions towards the consummation of the transaction. A unilateral contract is like an insurance contract. Okay? Life insurance, for example. Life insurance promises to pay. But when? When you die. That's their promise. Do you have to do anything for them to pay? No. So the action or the promise or the commitment is one-sided. Only the insurance company has to do something for that contract to take action. If you get into an accident, they're supposed to pay because they're the insurance that covers the accident, right? Another example that we have here about unilateral is an offer of a reward. A reward is, hey, if you find some evidence that will help us in capturing somebody for a crime they committed, if you find the evidence, we will reward you, right? But will I give you money if you call me and say, hey, Bruno, I'm about to witness a crime? Will I give you the money? No. I'll give you the money if your information help me capture the criminal. So a unilateral is, I'll do this if you'll do that. A bilateral is, we will both do this. So I'll do it and you'll do that. I'll do this and you'll do that. Unilateral, I'll do this if you do that. Okay? Again, I love people smiling, typing, and nothing comes through my end. So it must be great. Must be great to pay attention to a bunch of stuff at the same time. Just saying. Gary has a question coming through. Wait, Geraldine, you didn't make them? You ordered them? Shame, shame, shame. That's the world we're in today. We just order. All right. Gary's asking, would a unilateral contract be illegal if only one person is promising? No, no, no. It's not illegal. Think about it. My contract is very simple. When I talked about the insurance company, for instance, I promise that I will pay if you die. Do I have to pay if you don't die? Okay, so how is it illegal? That's as simple as that. It's, I promise I will pay if you get into an accident where it's not your fault, for instance. I promise that I will do this if you'll do that. That's what it is. Why would it be illegal? Perla says DoorDash. Oh, that's where the dash comes from that I was saying before. Okay. It's not Dine and Dash, it's the DoorDash. That's what it was. Well, we're talking about contract law in general. It applies in real estate as well. I'm not going to address it right now because we have examples coming up. But we're talking about real estate contract in general. It's contract law. Okay? Next we have executed and executory. So this is what I want you to write. Okay? Don't you love technology? I could always be talking about the weather here. All right, so executed means finished, means concluded, means we're done. Executory means pending. So when we put a contract together and we say we're going to close 90 days from now, that contract is executory. Why? Because something is still pending to happen. Once we get to the closing table, that contract is now executed. Why? Because it's finished. We're done. It's as simple as that. Executory, pending. Something needs to happen still before it becomes executed, before it finishes. Like for instance, the seller needs to do a CO. The buyer needs to get the mortgage approval. There has to be home inspections. So as we're going, it's called pending or executory. Once we get to the closing table and we exchange the cash for keys, it's now executed contract or finished contract. Simple enough? Okay. Now, you guys need to know that there's a second meaning to the term executed. Second meaning to the term executed. When we execute a contract, that means simply we signed. Because a contract is a piece of paper, right? Piece of paper means nothing, just like a check. If you have a blank check, until you sign it, is it valid? No. It's just a piece of paper. So the contract is the same thing. It's a piece of paper that has a bunch of wording on it, but until you sign, you have not executed or given any power to the contract itself. Once both parties sign, it's called a fully executed contract. That means both are in agreement. Okay? Riley, work with me. Tell me exactly what you're thinking about the winning ticket. Did you win one? Don't forget we best friends, okay? You wish. All right, so let's see what Riley's writing here. Like a winning ticket. Anybody play the Millions? Mega, Powerball, Cash for Life, and all that stuff? A winning ticket is invalid until it's signed in the back. Okay. That is true. So a ticket is just a ticket until somebody redeems or signs it in the back. Absolutely. So for you to redeem it, you have to sign it. So it'll be executed. Correct. Do I still do my system for the lottery? Trying to go back to it. Like, I still play. I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh no, I told you. What I told you is that there's people that have a system. I don't have a system. There's people that have a system and they systematically win. So I know more or less what it is for the scratch offs, which is being able to check in a series. There's always an award, big or small award, but there is one, and people have figured out when, just like playing cards, blackjack, and all that stuff. People have figured out by counting when is the word gonna come out, or the reward. So that's what it is. That's what I mentioned back then. So there's people that have system that I was trying to also figure it out. But for the Mega Millions or Powerball, stuff like that, it's easy. You just got to be over 90 and live in a different state. It's easy as that. Isn't it true? Have you noticed that the people that win the Mega Millions, the majority of them, they're either beyond retirement right? Like of this life even, right? And they always live in a different state than where you live. All right. So back then, this right here, back then I was probably still trying to figure it out how somebody could always repeatedly win money. And there's a guy that keeps on winning the lottery, at least an average of $100,000 to $200,000. He's just constantly winning. So there is a system to it. There is a system. That we know because it's a computerized system. So there is a system. There is a way. One of the ways is investing trillions of dollars, and eventually 1 million will come out. Now, the next thing is validity of contracts. Validity of contracts. How are contracts valid? Okay? So a valid contract, you guys already know, contains all essential elements. Okay? All essential elements. Hey, Tidy, we got to talk. When can we meet? All right, all essential elements. So it's obvious that a void contract, void means it does not have the essential elements. Simple. Very simple. Valid, all elements. Void, missing elements. You guys got it? What about voidable contract? Who can tell me what is a voidable contract? I think we already talked about this. What is a voidable contract? Engel just wrote minors, duress, for instance, right? One that can be canceled. Okay? All contracts can be canceled, actually. We're going to talk about that. It's called contingencies. Let's see. Okay. So, a voidable contract seems to be valid, but it could be rescinded or disaffirmed by one of the parties. All right? So, Anthony wrote, it seems legit, but could be terminated. Absolutely. Now, so we gave the example of a minor, for instance. Now we have, which is similar but also different, it's called unenforceable contract. So some of you wrote, like Chad just wrote, unenforceable. Okay? A voidable contract and an unenforceable contract could be two different things. See, voidable means I can void. Unenforceable, that means you cannot sue me. Okay? So voidable, I can void the contract. Unenforceable, you cannot force me, you cannot sue me to proceed. So a voidable contract could be unenforceable. All right? Could be. So it says right here, an unenforceable contract also seems, just like the voidable, also seems to be valid. However, neither party, see, on a voidable contract, one of us could void, right? Unenforceable contract, neither one can successfully sue or force the other party to proceed. So an unenforceable contract is valid as between the parties, because if both desire to go through with it, they can. But if one decides not to, or if both decide not to, then hey, we're good, no problem. All right? So, for example, Jason may have been drunk when he agreed to buy Robert's property. Now, if he was drunk, was he in his right state of mind? No. So, because Jason was not a competent party, over 18, but not a competent party, not of sound mind, right, when he signed the contract, then it's not enforceable. It seems to be valid, but it's not enforceable because he was not a competent party. But there is nothing at all that stops them from going through, right? So if Jason sobers up and he still wants to buy, Robert still wants to sell, then it's valid. Simple. We were not in the right state of mind, but now we are. Can we move forward? Hey, if you want it, and if I want it, let's do it. Right? You guys got it? So unenforceable contract, neither party can successfully sue to force the contract. And that brings us to undue influence and duress, which will help with the unenforceable part of it. Right? So contracts that are signed by a person under duress, that means being forced, right? Or undue influence, that means being taken advantage of, are voidable, that means may be canceled by such a person or by a court. And this is very important for you guys to understand right here. Extreme care should be taken when one of or more of the parties to a contract is elderly, sick, or in great distress or under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Okay? So to address Daphne, boom, right here. If you're under the influence, you're not of sound mind. So you cannot sue me and I cannot sue you. Simple as that. So when we sober up the next day, you try to sue me, you can't. If I try to sue you, I can't. Okay? If you force me into a contract, I can cancel or void that contract. But what I want you guys to pay attention is literally this. Not even the drugs or alcohol. It's simply this. Elderly, sick, and great distress. I've been focusing on this for several years, mainly on this one, great distress. But now, because of the current situation, elderly and mainly the sick ones. Okay? Do you know there's a lot of people that are losing their homes? One, because they don't know that there's benefits that they can apply for. Two, because they lost their job. Three, because they lost their business. Right? Four, because they lost a family member and they cannot afford by themselves anymore because there's no life insurance to protect them. Do you guys understand? There's a lot of reasons why people are now going to lose their homes. There's going to be a lot of foreclosures. This administration or the next administration coming over is going to have to come up with something like 2007, 2008 did. Some type of program that will assist or give incentives to the banks, like they did before, to assist people losing their homes, to help with loan modifications and short sales, like it did before. Okay, or even to do refis, short refis or something like that. Okay, so that program is going to have to come back somehow. Otherwise, the 40 foreclosures I have in Essex County every Tuesday are going to triple or even quadruple. Doesn't mean house values are going to crash like we did before, but I am telling you, there's going to be a lot of properties going through foreclosure. And then there's going to be a lot of realtors that will show up, knock on doors. Well, they're elderly, they don't understand, they're losing, so let me get them to sell. They're sick, so they need, so let me get them to sell. They lost their jobs, right? So they need, let me get them to sell. Careful, any of these could sue you in a heartbeat. An attorney, there's going to be attorneys focused on these types of lawsuits. Letting you know right now. Okay? And because we got great government stimulus of $1,200 and then $600 a week, there might be a lot of these too. Right? I'm telling you guys, it was the best 4th of July ever. There was fireworks everywhere. All my neighbors had fireworks. I guess they used all the money in fireworks, all the government money. Very important you guys know, to be valid, every contract must be signed, we said this before, must be signed as a free voluntary act. Free voluntary act of each party. Okay? Free voluntary act. If you're forced, right, then it's under duress, it's not valid anymore. Next. This word, performance of contract. All right, guys. Performance of contract. What do you think this word means? If there's a contract for real estate, in real estate, what is a contract for real estate? What is it for? Let me know in the chat. Let's say it's seller and buyer. Let's not talk about tenants at all. If it's seller and buyer, what is the contract for? Obvious, right? So the reason we got into contract was for one to buy and the other one to sell, correct? Are you guys with me? All right. I want to make sure you pay attention to this because a lot of people mess up with performance of contract. You don't understand what it is. So let's go over it. We just said if it's a purchase and sale agreement, so a real estate contract to buy a house or sell a house, then the performance is closing, right? One to sell and the other one to buy. So I want you to write, I've been trying different ways to get this through. So I want you to write that performance of the contract is closing. So what does that mean? It means that if you back out of the deal, I can sue you for specific performance. Meaning, I can still sue you to close. You got it? I can sue the seller or the seller could sue the buyer. Either one of us can sue each other to perform the contract. You said you were going to buy. I said you were going to that I was going to sell, whatever it is. That means I can sue you to close. Now, what if you're just taking too long? I needed to close by the 21st of July. We're 1 week away. And the seller still did not get a CO on the property. Now, CO is a certificate of occupancy, right? Does anybody know how long it takes, state of New Jersey, on average, to get a CO? At least 2 weeks. At least. 2 weeks. The 21st is 7 days away. Well, 8 days away. Right? Are we going to close on the 21st? If we don't have a CO yet? Possibly not. Unless he miraculously shows up tomorrow. Right? Possibly not. So, because you won't close in 2 weeks, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue you. My attorney is going to send you a letter which is called time is of the essence. That letter simply states, hey, you're not performing the contract within the time limit specified. So because you, the seller, are not doing what you said you were going to do, what you promised to do, right? I will give you some extra time. So it's not mentioned here. I will give you some extra time. Let's say another week or so, right? But if by that time we don't close, right, then you are guilty of a breach of contract. If you are guilty of a breach of contract, I can either sue you or cancel the contract and we're done and walk away. What happens is, in this, we're going to have this in a second. In this type of transaction, if you breach the contract, I can walk away. I can force you to sell, or I can even sue you for compensation for taking longer. You got it? That's what we're going to address in a second. Yameli, where do you have that? Which town? Heather says performance equals push. Okay, salt and pepper. All right, so next we have assignment. Some people here don't even know who salt and pepper was, but okay. Assignment and novation. Okay. So assignment, I'm going to make this simple. Transfer. Okay. And novation is new. Okay, because nova means new. So of what am I doing? Contract. Passaic, that's a great inspector. Same day. They had nothing to do then that day. Or you're blinking your eyes like, please. Let's see what we got. Riley says, is there an addendum that you can include if you're pending inspections? Yep, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Yep. It's called contingencies. All right, so assignments and novation. Guys, Steven, are you singing? I see Steven talking. I don't know if he's singing or if he's talking. All right. I went every day and spent hours there. That's why. So you get to know. Oh, you were reading. Okay, I was about to turn on the mic so we can hear you sing. That's what I thought it was. Some people need to read with a beat. I don't know. That's probably what you're doing. All right, so assignment and novation. Let's say we put it on the contract, right? We put it on the contract and I don't know, something happens in our life and we cannot move forward with the purchase or we don't want it anymore. Can we get out of the contract? We already said that if it's after 3 business days, we're going to enforce it again. We're going to talk about it again. If it's after 3 business days, then it's a binding contract. You have to deal with it, right? But can you still find a legal way to back out? The answer is maybe. You could either assign, which means transfer, right? Or by novation, which is create a new contract. Now, when we're talking about assignments, we are transferring rights and or duties, okay? So today we call this wholesaling. So assignment technically is wholesaling. We're putting under contract and then we're flipping it to somebody else. If we're making money out of it, wholesaling, which we could. You could transfer the rights and duties for $1,000, for $2,000, for $10,000. Heck, you could do an assignment for $50,000 if there's enough value there, okay? But that's what wholesaling is. For wholesaling, you guys, the reason why I talk about this in every class, even though it's not specifically in the book, is because you hear on the radio all the time. You hear on the radio all the time. New Jersey, New York are perfect for real estate investing, right? Don't you hear on the radio, on TV and everything, 2 o'clock in the morning, right? So they're always advertising, come to our events, learn about doing this. Wholesaling is the easiest and cheapest form of real estate investing. The easiest and the cheapest form. Why? Because you might not even put any money into it. It all depends. All right? So wholesaling is transferring of rights and maybe getting paid. The problem with wholesaling, first of all, is that many contracts may allow or not the wholesale or the transfer, right? And in every assignment, there's something called secondary liability. So the assignor, you, now have secondary liability. So let's say, for instance, let's say Talia. Talia puts a property under contract with me. I'm the seller, she's the buyer. Now, something happens in Talia's life and it's not the right time for her to buy, so she finds Moses, right? Right, the Savior. So she goes to Moses and says, hey, Moses, listen, I got this deal, but I cannot buy right now. Give me $2,000 and I'll transfer it to you. Just give me something because I put something too, so nominal fee, right? And Moses says, wow, it's a good deal, so I'll do it, right? So Talia assigned the rights or duties to Moses. So Moses now has to buy. Not only does he get the benefit of the contract, he also gets the obligation. So do you think Talia is clear? She doesn't have any problems anymore with this property? The answer is no. In an assignment, if Moses does not buy the property, Talia maintains secondary liability. That means she can get sued as well as Moses on this lack of performance. You guys got it? When there's an assignment, that's why I don't like these fly-by-nights type of events that they gather over at Hilton and stuff like that. Is because they infuse so much information, they throw so much at you, and they forget to mention, hey, careful, right? Careful, if you don't do this right, you are liable to buy. You could transfer to somebody else and you think, oh, I made my money, I'll walk away. No. No. If they don't close, then you didn't close. That means we're suing both of you. Okay? In an assignment, you could both get sued. Okay? Now, Talia, let me ask you something. You transferred to Moses for a reason, right? Because you couldn't buy. Do you want to get sued? No, nobody does, right? So here's what you can do. Novation. Novation is new. Nova means new. So what we're saying here is that you're going to substitute the original contract for a new contract. So you're going to come to me and say, Bruno, listen, I can't, I won't be able to, but I got this guy that will. Moses, great guy, he's ready to buy. Would you mind ripping our contract and then you create a contract with him? If I say yes, then guess what? Talia, you're out of the picture. If he doesn't buy, I don't go after you. I sue him only. Moses only. You guys understand? So assignment, both of you have liability. Novation, only the person that receives the deal at the end, so the end buyer, is the one that has the obligation. Talia, you are in the middle, no more obligations. You're out. Okay? Novation. Okay? So the new agreement may be between the same parties or even a new party. In the case of novation, the old contract no longer has any force. So novation is still a transfer, but we're taking Talia out of the picture. So if you guys want to get into wholesaling, you either have a cash buyer ready to buy next day, or make sure you get a novation on that wholesaling. Don't do assignments, do novation. Okay? Let's see what we got. Would that be a tick? Gary's asking. Would that be a tick? A tenant in common. 2 or more people. Yes. In this case, we're part of the contract temporarily. A wholesaling is I'm temporarily owner of the contract. And therefore temporarily owner of the property. Because every time you put something under contract, guys, you're technically the owner of the property until that's void, until it's canceled, until we decide not to go through. You are, from the offer to closing, you're already the owner of the property. You cannot do anything with the property, but the seller cannot sell to anybody else either while that contract is in effect. Does that make sense? So you already have what's called a beneficial interest in the property. Talia wrote, what will you say no to new... I'm lost on that one. What do you mean? I'll say no to new agreements? A little lost. Daphne wrote, why would somebody sign and then do an assignment or novation or contract? Also, what happens if you sign but don't want it and can't find the assignment or novation? Life. So why would somebody do it? Well, all right, we're going to finish this chapter tomorrow, which is great because it goes with leases anyway. So why would somebody do it? So let's say like this. You have a lot of money, Daphne, right? You have a bunch of money, but you don't know what to do with your money. You want to invest in real estate, but you don't want a headache of going out there and looking for properties. Me, I have zero money, but I have the desire, I have the energy, and the motivation to go look for properties. I find a good deal, you want a good deal, right? What do? I transfer that good deal to you. You didn't do anything, I invested your money. I helped you invest your money, and I get compensated for it. I'm out of the way now. So it's similar to being a realtor. Why would people use a salesperson? The difference is, in one of them, so wholesaling, I have to be part of the contract as a buyer. A realtor, if they want to get compensated, a salesperson, if we want to get compensated, we have to have authorization to represent the seller or the buyer. But we have no obligation. As salespeople, we're not liable for anything in terms of the transaction itself, the sale or the purchase, right? In wholesaling, as an investor, once I step in and I put my name as a buyer, I have liability as a buyer, okay? But you're the one that wants it. I found it for you. So here, Daphne, give me $5,000 and this contract for this amazing property with $30,000 worth of equity, like with immediate value, right? This value is costing you $5,000. That's what it is, right? Do you want it? Do you want $30,000? It costs you $5,000. Would that be a good deal, guys? For you to make $30,000 and pay $5,000 for it? Do you think it's a good deal? It's a great return. How many people want it? Right? Great. So let me know if you have the cash, and I'll flip some properties to you. I'll make $5,000 from each one of you, times 40. Do the math. That's why people get into wholesale. Okay? Next. Absolutely, Gary. Talia, if I'm asking you to do novation agreements, but I can't continue, could you say no? As a seller, I can always say no to either one of them. As a seller, I don't have to agree to assignments. I don't have to agree to novations. I don't have to agree to anything. But if I do agree, right, then you are now liable for it 100%. If it's a novation, whoever, like if you transfer to Moses, then Moses is 100% liable. Okay? If it's assignments, both of you are liable. But I don't have to agree to anything. And I can still sue you to close, or I can sue you for compensation, whatever I decide. Tidy. While in the progress of a contract, if something happens to the property, then it's a voidable contract or an unenforceable contract. We'll talk about that in a second, or maybe tomorrow. We'll see. Vanessa, there's any reason that can allow the buyer to cancel the contract? Coming up soon. All right. So let's go to the next page. These are answers that are coming in a page or so. Next page, we got default or breach of contract. What is default or breach of contract? That means you said you're going to do something, but then you didn't do it. Now, sometimes you don't do it because there's major forces like or like superior forces like, hey, you don't qualify for the mortgage, right? If you don't qualify for the mortgage, that is called a legal excuse. But a breach of contract is a violation without legal excuse. Oops, sorry. Without legal excuse. So a breach of contract is, okay, so you decided today was a good day not to sell. How's that an excuse? Tell me the reason why you're not selling. Oh, I just feel like not selling. No, that's not a legal excuse. A legal excuse is, Talia, you don't qualify for a mortgage. Yeah, if you don't qualify for the mortgage, if something happened, you purchased subject to or conditional to getting a mortgage. So I knew up front you are not going to buy cash. So I knew up front you might not have the money. It's all about disclosure, guys. Legal excuse is whatever we put in the contract that would exclude us from the contract, which we'll go over in a second. Let's say it's the seller that defaults. the seller says, I'm not selling. Well, the buyer can rescind or cancel, which means the same thing, and recover their money. The buyer can sue for specific performance. That means force you to sell. Okay? Or the buyer may sue for compensation. Okay? So if the seller backs out just because, the buyer has three options. Either to cancel, okay, just give me the money back and I'll go somewhere else, right? To sue you and say, hey, Mr. Seller, you are selling, no matter what. Or to sue the buyer and say, hey, seller, you're going to pay me for all the time that I lost and all the money I put into this deal already. Okay, so these are the three options. If the buyer is the one that defaults, the options are exactly the same plus one. There's this additional option, which is the seller can keep the deposit as liquidated damages, as a settlement. Okay? So earnest money deposit is good faith deposit. So it's very similar to security deposit when you go rent. You're putting a deposit in good faith that you will honor the contract all the way to the end. And if you don't pay a rent, or if you damage the unit, what can the seller do? The landlord do, keep the money. Here, if the buyer puts $1,000 as, hey, I really want to buy your house, right? But then you don't buy because you had no excuse, you just decided not to buy anymore, then the seller can keep that money. It's a settlement. Look, I'm not going to sue you anymore. I'll just keep whatever is the deposit. That's why it's called good faith deposit. Okay? And that brings us on the right-hand side to statute of limitations. So statute of limitations is how long do I have to sue? 6 years. Okay? So 6 years for a lawsuit. The thing about the 6 years, guys, is this right here. The 6 years applies to contracts in general, foreclosures, mortgages, and fraud. 6 years to sue somebody based on a contract. Okay? After the 6 years, you are SOL. Does anybody know what SOL means? Anybody? These people. What kind of world do we live in? SOL, statute of limitation. You guys, really. SOL, statute of limitations. So you're limited. All right? You're limited. You cannot do anything else anymore. And to recover, nice save, Anthony. Whatever Steven said. Blame it on him. And to recover property, because of whatever situation, to recover property, you have 10 years. Okay? Just in case the question does pop up. Let's say you were part of a bad transaction where there was fraud involved, whatever, or a bad foreclosure. You have up to 10 years to sue and get your property back. Now, I'll tell you right now, most of the times, you don't get the property back. You get compensation. Right? Because now there's a new family there. Right? What does that family have anything to do with what happened to you? Does that make sense? So, most likely, title company will compensate you. All right, this you guys already know from listings and even from Chapter 3. What kind of contracts can we get involved in? On 1 to 4 family residences and vacant single lots. So we can prepare contracts for any of these, right? Yanessa, a bad foreclosure is where the bank did not have right to foreclose. Just like a bad collection. Most collection companies cannot even collect on you. They don't have the right to. But anyway, you fall for it, you allow it, and boom, collections. You guys already know also that you cannot draft commercial leases, option agreements, or sales contracts on vacant land, tracts of vacant land, commercial property, or industrial property, right? We are allowed to prepare contracts on 1 to 4 family, and anything above that, we prepare what's called a letter of intent. Attorneys prepare the contract, okay? What does it mean by single lots? The ones that are not married. It's a joke. If you guys saw her face. So single lots. One parcel, a 25 by 100, let's say. Tracts of land or tracts of vacant land would be, for instance, a 25 by 100 and another 25 by 100. Buying both of those will now be a tract of land. So when it's multiple lots, we now consider tracts. You cannot get involved in the sale of multiple lots. If it's a single lot, yes. If it's a large or multiple lots, you cannot. In terms of contract, we still get paid, we can still list it, but we don't draft a contract that involves multiple properties at the same time. Okay? New Jersey requirements. We're going to talk about this now and also tomorrow with leases, which is all offers, contracts, or leases prepared by licensees must indicate the business relationship that the firm has with respect to the parties named in the document. Which document tells us the type of business relationship that we can enter into? Which document tells us the type of business relationship that we can enter into? All right, good. Now you got it. The CIS. And by the way, what types of business relationships can we enter into? Since you're at it. What type of business relationships can we enter into? Joseph, I don't know what that is. You want to be the seller or the buyer? Page 34, page 35. I know where you guys are getting at, but look, oh, hold on. Listing agreements, no. Gil, seller, no. Joseph, seller, buyer, no. Okay. Gary, no. Vanessa, yes. Let me switch this. Hey, Brian, I don't know what that was. Zaction broker? Zaction. I know it's the continuation from up there, but a Zaction? Guys, seller's agent, buyer's agent, disclosed dual agent. You guys are wrong on dual agent. It's disclosed dual agent and transaction broker. Okay? Ha! Brian, blame it on the computer. That's what it is. All right? So business relationships. Page 34 and page 35. Make a note again. Every time they're asking about types of business relationships is how can we represent or not these people. We can either represent the seller, seller's agent, the buyer, buyer's agent, right? We can represent both as a disclosal agent or none as a transaction broker. So that's why I told some of you to stop. Like Joseph and Gil, it's not seller, buyer. No, seller's agent, buyer's agent. That's the business relationship. We're agents for one or for the other, or for both, or transaction broker for none. Okay? Now, right here, attached to a proposed contract must be a notice which talks about the business relationships. Now, it's very important that in that notice, it says if you are seller's agent, buyer's agent, disclosure agent, or transaction broker. Why? Because there's a monetary interest in the transaction. And the buyer could void the whole transaction if this is not disclosed. If the buyer is unaware that you represent the seller as well, right, then they can void the contract, and vice versa. So for that reason, New Jersey requires also that the following language appears in exactly this form at the top of the first page of every sales contract. And it says, this is a legally binding contract that will become final within 3 business days. It's a legally binding contract that will become final within 3 business days. And we already talked about this. We said that after 3 business days, you cannot get out of the contract, right? Unless you have a legal excuse. Okay? Remember, business days, 3 business days. Remember that. Business, not calendar, business. Makes a difference. Also in the student portal, guys, you have there timelines. You have that also on the Facebook group. You can search for New Jersey timelines. So it talks about the 3 business days, 5 business days, the 7 calendar days. It talks about 1 year to sue, 2 years to sue. Everything is there, all the timelines. What can you do during the 3 business days? What is it for? Well, it's for you to have an opportunity to do an attorney review. See, what do you want that opportunity for? I'm not an attorney. You're not an attorney. So bring the contract that we prepared, bring it to an attorney that will look at it and either help you agree or disagree to certain terms of the contract. State of New Jersey does not require that we have an attorney, but it does require that I give you an opportunity to have it studied by an attorney. Right? Now, when does the 3 business days start? This is probably one of the most important questions. When does this 3 business days start? Once it was delivered, a signed contract to both the seller and the buyer. Once both parties have received a signed contract, then the 3 business days start. Okay? Once both parties receive a signed contract, then the 3 business days start. So it's not when the seller says, hey, we accept it. No. It's when the buyer says, okay, here's the seller's signature. You got it? Because the offer is initiated by the buyer. So the buyer says, here's my signature. These are my terms. As soon as the seller sends it back signed, that means agreed to, now we have both signatures. Now starts the 3 business days because both parties have received a signed copy of the contract. Questions? Oh, there is one. By the way, Gil, there's no stupid questions except for that one. I'm just kidding. If it's after 5 p.m., does it start the next day? Then the answer would be yes. If it's after business hours, then it starts the next day. Absolutely. Talia, you wrote meeting of the minds. So yes, both parties are in agreement. But until I receive a copy that says you are in agreement with my offer, the 3 business days do not start. Okay? I have to have a copy. Like I said, we're going to repeat this tomorrow on leases. Other required disclosures, we talked about offsite conditions. We talked about lead-based paint. We talked about Megan's Law in Chapter 3, right? So we talked about all these disclosures. Chapter 9, we talked about this. If the property was built before 1978, you must give a 10-day opportunity to conduct a survey or an inspection of the property. Right? You guys remember this from yesterday? Okay. Everybody's like this, but inside their minds, they're like, nope. All right, contract forms. What is the problem with contract forms? Because I told you guys in New Jersey, we don't have to have an attorney, correct? So the contracts are pretty much standard for residential transactions. They're standard. The question is, are all one families alike? Are all two families alike? 3 and 4 families alike? No. They're all unique situations. So it raises a few problems, right? One of the problems is what to write in the blanks. What are we going to write in the blanks? I have no idea, right? It should be, if it says seller's information, then we put seller's information. If it says buyer's information, we put buyer's information. Believe it or not, some agents can still screw that up. And where it says buyers, they put seller. Where it says seller, they put buyer. Property information is another blank that's there. A lot of people make the mistake of putting the seller's info and the buyer's and the property info as the same. What if I live in a different town, right, different property altogether than the one that I'm selling? Do you know how many times agents put my mailing address, as an example, right, the seller's address, as the property address? It's not. I don't live there. You see what I'm trying to say? So you have to always ask, what is the property address? What is the property address, what is your mailing address? Few things. The numbers. A lot of people don't know what the numbers are, how to calculate down payments, good faith, all that stuff. A lot of people don't know how to calculate the numbers. What printed matter is not applicable and has to be ruled out by drawing lines through the unwanted words. Some properties have a well, some don't, right? Some properties were built before 1978, others didn't. So there's a few check boxes and a few things you need to cross off, doesn't apply. So that's one of the problems, or two of the problems already, with standard contracts. The third problem is riders or additional clauses or addenda, right? So additions to the contract. For instance, if you're buying with an FHA loan, then you need to have an FHA VA addenda, which says, Mr. Seller and Mr. Buyer, you guys are aware that if the property does not appraise, we're not going to fund it. I mean, we will if the buyer comes up with more money. You guys understand? So these are addenda. These are additions. If the seller's contributing towards the closing costs, then there's a seller's concession addenda, which is a document that says the seller promises to give $10,000, for instance, towards the closing costs. These are not part of the standard contract. These are additions. These are addendums. These are riders. You guys got it? So these are the 3 problems that standard contracts bring. All right? If you guys give me a few more minutes, we'll actually still finish today. Okay? This is common sense. If it's printed, right? If it's printed like this book is, and we type something in the blanks, if it's typed, right, then whatever's typed takes precedence over the printed, and whatever's handwritten takes precedence over whatever's printed or typed. So if I write, I just have to put my initials that I made changes to whatever's there. So handwritten, priority, typed, second place, and then printed, which is standard, is the last on the table, okay? Listing agreements, you guys already know it's between the seller, right, and the broker. Buyer brokerage agreements is between the buyer and the broker. So these are just agreements between the parties. We already covered all this. Chapter 3, we talked about transaction broker and dual agency agreements, if you guys remember. Page 34, page 35, just in case you don't remember. The next page, page 140. we already said that contracts are offers, right? In fact, they're called offer to purchase, contract of purchase and sale, earnest money agreements, or even binder and deposit receipts. So they have different names to them. They all mean the same. Contract equals offer. It could also be called binder and deposit receipt. Different names to it. Offer and acceptance, we already covered all this. What we didn't talk about was this. Counteroffers. Okay? Counteroffers. So, what is a counteroffer? A counteroffer is a rejection. Counteroffer is a rejection. Very simply. I made an offer of $200,000, but it has to include the drapes. You guys know what drapes are? Like the curtains, right? The shades, whatever. $200,000 including the drapes, because I really like the ones that you have at your house. And you're going to go like, no, my grandma got me those. They're like from generation to generation. That's a family thing. So no, I will accept your $200,000, but not the drapes. They don't go included in the sale. Question. Because you said no drapes, does that constitute a counter? I mean, it's still $200,000, right? The value is still the same. Is this a counter or no? Is this a counter offer or no? Gil, I'll address it in a second. I saw it. Okay. For those of you saying no, the answer is yes. For those of you saying yes can be, the answer is still yes, it is. Any change, guys, remember this, any change to the original offer, it's a counter offer. I said no drapes. I'm changing the value of my offer. Simple. You got it? The drapes could cost $100, right? That means my offer should have been, right, $199,900, $100 less. I offered you $200, including the drapes. You said no drapes, so you altered the value on my offer. You rejected my offer. And guys, why am I talking about drapes as an example? Because the question in the state exam, if you get it, the question in the state exam is as ridiculous as drapes. I'm not saying it's going to be drapes, but it's something as ridiculous as that. Does this constitute a counteroffer? The answer is yes. Any change to my offer is a counteroffer. Okay? Why is this important? Because let's say, right, I said $200,000 including drapes. You said $200,000 no drapes. I'm going to be like, okay, then I don't want the house. And I'll walk away. And you tell me, Bruno, come back. Fine. We'll take the $200,000 and the drapes. Do I have to proceed? Guys, do I have to go back to my offer because you now said, hey, don't worry, just come back. We'll include the drapes. We're good. We're good. Forget grandma. It's generational, but don't forget it. Let's sell. Do I, the buyer, have to proceed? Nope. I don't have to do anything because you rejected it. Guys, something to remember in the state exam. Counteroffer equals rejection. If it's rejected, even if you call me back, I'm not obligated to go back to my original offer. In fact, what can I do? Let's look at what Chad wrote. I can say, hey, listen, 5 minutes ago it was 200 with the drapes. Now it's 190 with the drapes. You choose. Do you really want to sell? Do you guys understand? So any change to the contract is a counteroffer, therefore a rejection of my offer. If you come back to me and say, hey, Bruno, let's go back to the original, it's no longer an offer. If I want to, if I really want to, fine, 200 drapes, great. But if I want to be one of those guys that, you know how, I don't want to say the word because it keep things clean, but if I want to be one of those guys that's going to be like, that was 5 minutes ago. Now it's 190. Take it or leave it. Do you understand? Rejection. Tidy, I just answered, I think. Emily says less money and the curtains. Yeah, just like Chad said, and Heather, he's right. Everything in life is negotiable. Everything has a price. Everything has a price. And when I say price, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about value. Okay? Everything has a price. There's a value to everything. Carlos says, a ceiling fan or a window screen could be between us and money and the bank. Yeah. A chandelier, a ceiling fan, window screen. Everything is negotiable. Okay? I have to spend money. So you're going to have to deduct on your end. Do you agree to it? No? Okay. Next. Simple as that. Okay. We talked about earnest money deposits. These are called good faith deposits. We talked about them already, didn't we? Why do we have good faith deposits? Because we give evidence of the buyer's intention to carry out the terms. Now, because they are good faith, guys, they're good faith, right? They're not mandatory, so they're not essential to the contract. Do we have to give a good faith deposit? Only if the seller requests it. We don't have to. Should we? Absolutely. Why? To prove that we do want that property. Because if I put $1,000 towards your property, am I going to put $1,000 on 10 properties? Most likely not. Unless I'm loaded with money, most likely I'm not putting offer here, offer there, offer there. No. I put $1,000 as a commitment to purchasing your property. It's not necessary, but I just want to show you in good faith that I will go through. Okay? Right here in the middle, it's business days. So you don't get confused. So he talks about earnest money must be deposited by the broker within 5 business days. You guys remember this in the escrow account? This is chapter 2. Okay? Otherwise, it's called commingling. Remember that Chinese word? Commingling? Right? Cool. Page 141. Yep, Vanessa, mixing. Absolutely. Page 141 is the cover page of the contract. Look what it says. Let me zoom in for you. Right as a cover. It says, as a real estate broker, I represent who? The seller, but not the buyer. The buyer, but not the seller. Both the seller and the buyer, or neither the seller nor the buyer. So in this notice to buyer and seller is where we discuss our business relationships. Okay? If you guys remember the CIS says, I intend to represent you as. Here, now it's a contract. I don't intend anymore, I represent. You see the difference? One says as a notice, hey buyer, hey seller, I intend to represent you this way. Once we put an offer, I now represent you this way. So it's a statement now. Before it was a notice, right? Disclosure. Now it's a statement of representation, of business relationship, business representation. So this is what we were talking about before, right? As a cover of a contract. It's the first page of the contract. Cannot be hidden. This is the offer. All these pages. 14 pages. That's the offer. If you go now to page 154, guys. Page 154. Page 154. Okay. Just a couple of things. We're almost done. Page 154. Signature of a witness is not essential. Signature of a witness is not essential. That means we don't have to have somebody watch us sign. Should we have it? Yes. Do we have to? No. On the right-hand side, we have contingencies. You guys were asking me before, and I told you it was going to come up in a little bit. That's why I decided to go through and finish. There's something called contingencies. Contingencies are conditions, right? That means if conditions are not met, do I have to proceed with a contract? Guys, think about it. If a contingency or condition is not met, do I have to proceed? These are the legal excuses, guys. For instance, I want to buy the house, but I need to get an FHA or a VA loan. If I don't get approved for the FHA or VA loan, do I have to buy it? No. Okay? And these are the common, it's highlighted in the book already, so I'm just showing you. These are some of the common restrictions, conditions, which is I need to get a specific loan. I need to get an inspection, which is normal. If inspection is not satisfactory, right? Do I have to buy? No. Inspection failed. I'm sorry. Approval of a contract by a family member. I need to sell my home in order to buy yours. These are all conditions, contingencies. I will buy yours, I promise, if it meets all these conditions. You guys got it? These are legal ways to back out of the deal. So, the buyer cannot be required to complete the purchase if any contingency, such contingency is not satisfied. Okay, so that I think that answered a lot of questions that I had before regarding what if this happened, what if that happened. The what ifs are covered by the subject to or the conditional or contingency section. These are the what if. What if. Got it? These are the what if I don't qualify. What if the inspection comes negative? What if there's this? What if there's that? If we expressed all the what ifs in the contract, that's literally saying, hey, if it doesn't meet my what ifs, then I don't have to buy. I can walk away. For the seller, well, I insist on an escape clause as well. If you need to buy my house, need to sell your house in order to buy mine, I also want to have a clause that protects me. What does that mean? Well, pretty much, if you don't do it within X amount of days or months, sorry, there's a little fly here that keeps on coming right by me, so annoying. So if it doesn't complete within X amount of days or months, right, then I can back out. It's called a kick out or a knockout clause. We already talked about this, liquidated damages, right? So this means settlement. Liquidated damages means settlement. And that's when I get to keep the money that's in escrow because you, the buyer, decided to back out. You guys remember this? It was a few minutes ago. the seller can keep as liquidated damages. The problem with liquidated damages, guys, is that if you decide to keep them, it's liquidation. It's a settlement. I cannot sue you any further. That's it. I either keep what's in escrow or I sue you. One or the other. I cannot get both. Okay? So liquidated damages is me keeping the money in escrow as a settlement. All right, we are in the last page, guys, so smile a little bit. Almost done. All right, plain language requirement. If you guys remember, you're not required to have an attorney in the state of New Jersey for residential transactions, right? We are not required. So that means that the contract must be written in words that are used in everyday usage, right? So common words. Things that you can understand, things that you can read and be like, oh, okay, I know what this is, right? So plain language requirements. Just remember, plain language means words that are used, that are common for everyday usage. And once you start reading a contract, you'll realize there's no such thing. But that's the requirement. Rescission means cancellation. I don't go over this now because we're going to talk about it several times. Either we already talked about it or we will repeat a bunch of times what cancellation means or rescission. When can you cancel a contract or rescind the contract, right? But rescission, the word rescission means cancellation. And these are the last two things. We're going to stop here for a minute or two. Very simple. Option agreements. I want you to write similar to car lease, also known as, aka, rent to own. Okay, in front of option, you're going to write similar to car lease, also known as rent to own or rent to buy or lease with option to buy. All these mean exactly the same. Why do I say that it's similar to a car lease? Well, because when you're renting a car, right, lease, that's a rental, right? You're renting it for 3 years. What they give you up front, guys, what they give you up front is an option to buy, right? So they give you an option to buy the car. Isn't that true? In a lease, in a car lease, you rent it for 3 years, for instance, but at the end of 3 years, do you want to buy? Or do you want to lease another one? Or you just want to walk away? They give you the option, okay? This is very similar. You get to rent the house for a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever you and the seller determine. The seller will become your landlord for that period of time, right? And then once that period of time ends, whatever you stipulate in the option, once it ends, you either buy or walk away. So you get to test drive the house, the neighborhood, the school system, right? The government there. You get to figure out if this is the right place for you or not. If you like, you buy. If you don't like it, you walk away. Are you guys good with this? Thumbs up? Okay. Question mark. Daphne. Daphne's asking, why wouldn't the person just rent it? What do you mean? Don't you want to buy? Maybe you can't afford to buy right now. Maybe your credit is not good to get approved to buy right now. So you're telling the landlord or the seller, hey, I really want your house. I just can't do it now. Would you consider renting it to me with a promise or an option for me to buy later on? That's all. You really like the house, so why not? Okay. Yeah, so the Heather just wrote, you could also lock the price depending on the contract. Traditionally, option agreements or rent with option to buy, you're buying today at a future price or at the current price, whatever you determine to be. Can you lock it at today's price? If the seller wants to, yeah. That would be a steal if you lock it at today's price. Because tomorrow, normally, traditionally, is going to be worth more. So, could you? So, Daphne, the reason why we lease cars, right, is because maybe we don't qualify for an actual financing, or maybe we're not sure if we want that car. Those are some of the things. The house is the same thing. I don't qualify for full financing, so I'm going to rent it. It's not really mine yet. If I like it, or if I can qualify for it at a later time, I'll buy it. I don't have to, but I'll try. Okay? The next one is land contracts. On the right-hand side on top, land contracts. I want you to write similar to car financing. Why similar to car financing? Because you get the deed at the end. You pay, and after you paid enough into it, or all of it, just like a car, they release the title to the car. The car is now yours. Until then, you're like the registered driver only. Does that make sense? So you have an interest in the car, just like the house. You have an interest, you have a beneficial interest, but it's still not yours. This is also known as contract for deed or installment sales contract, because you're paying in installments to earn it at a future date. Okay? Just like an option agreement, this is called seller. It's a structure, a seller financing structure. You guys good? All right. This is all highlighted, everything I just said right now, all highlighted, including the fact that the seller does not execute and deliver a deed until the terms of the contract have been satisfied. You still have equitable title, and equity means you have value in it, right? You still have equitable title as a buyer, but you don't get the deed until you either pay it off in full, or let's say until 70% of it. Yesenia is asking of an example of land contract. It's the same as a car, but the seller becomes the bank. So Yesenia, you come to me and say, hey, Bruno, so just like options. Bruno, I really want to buy your house. I have the down payment. I have a great job. I just have a so-so credit. So the bank does not allow me to purchase your house. Does not give me enough financing. Bruno, would you consider, right, financing it to me? It's like you be the bank. And I'll say yes. Okay, Yanessa, come up with 10% down payment or 20% down payment towards the house, and I will allow you to pay me in installments. That's why it's called installment sale contract. You'll pay me in installments over 30 years at 6%. That's it. So I become the bank. That's the only difference. Did everybody get it? Cool. Awesome. Good night. All right, guys. If there's no other questions, then Daphne, there's a question coming through. All right. But if you guys want to leave, you can leave. I'll see you tomorrow at 5:30. If anybody has questions, wants to stay, go ahead. Daphne, yes, the seller becomes the bank. Absolutely. So I will lend to you. So by allowing you to pay me in installments, I am the bank. You pay me. Good night, good night, good night. What program am I using? It's called Drawboard PDF. Drawboard PDF, yep. Well, I could. I mean, look at the time. Did you see the time? You texted me this morning. We'll check, Talia. Send me the message again, okay? So I don't lose it. All right. Any other questions, guys? Nope. Good night. Thank you.